My apologies. I normally aim for 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, but one thing after another, right? Big family life, it happens. Baby's crawling around the floor. She's actually army crawling right now. It's pretty impressive. 10-month-old Corey. So if you hear any little goo goo gagas in the background, that's what's going on. Today I have on my heart to share with you big families and wills. Oh, she's grabbing the whole table. My laptop's on. I'm just going to put my hands on the table and stabilize it. Hi, cutie. Maybe I'll put you up on my lap. Can I say hi? Come say hi for a second. So when we were 4 kids deep of our number 11 right now, we didn't have a will in place at the time. We were super single income at the time. My husband was just working at like a wood place, like a lumber yard. And we were barely making ends meet at the time. Hey, getting on to nap time, eh? Let's see if we can buy some time. So having like life insurance, which ties to the will, but today I'm just going to talk about the will part, was a luxury we hadn't yet afforded. And it was on my mind. It was one of those things that kept me up in the dead of the night when I'd be like, what if something happens? What if something happens to both of us? And I didn't know the ins and outs of the law or anything. As a topic my parents never talked to us about when we were growing up. And, they don't teach that in high school. So I was really at a loss. I didn't know, what to do or where to start or who to talk to or anything. And I'm not an insurance agent. I'm not a lawyer by any means. It's not my background at all. I'm just going to share from my experience what we did when we did it. And if it's helpful to you, especially if you're a couple years earlier in the life journey of big family motherhood, and this is bothering you, it's just one of those things that you put off, then maybe this will encourage you to take some steps, which is what we did. So thinking of a will, we didn't have one in place, and it wasn't until our 4th was born. And if you heard my story, everything changed after our 2nd and 3rd, the twins were born. That's when we had a big heart change, a big life change, and we never what I planned to do with my life at all. We were going to trust God with our family size. And I am a very fecund, I'm not sure how you say it, very fertile woman. The Lord has blessed me that fertility is not something I have struggled with. In fact, it's the opposite. I get pregnant pretty easy, pretty fast. And now here it is, baby 11, just turned 44 in September. And she may be our last, the Lord knows. So I think what delayed me finally looking into how would I go about getting will where I live in here in Canada, because I imagine it's different, state to state. I don't even know. Like it's just something I don't think we were really even Googling then, because this would have been 10 years ago. I really didn't know where to start or who to talk to. But what was holding me back was because we didn't know who the kids would go to. Right? It's like a subtopic in the topic of the uncomfortable but grown-up talk of what would we do? What are our arrangements in the unlikely but not impossible event of a catastrophic tragedy involving both of us? And it's bad enough to think about one spouse dying and your children going through the grief and trauma of losing a parent or having like a severely, what's what I'm looking for? Like disabled, spouse, like just, the nightmare situations. But part of being a grown-up is having those conversations with your spouse or if you're on your own and thinking like, what's the plan and what can I do or who could I talk to? But I held back for years because we were in a complicated situation as first-generation Christians. Neither my husband or my parents are Christian. We didn't at the time have siblings who were even married much. I might be getting my timeline wrong, so forgive me, Megan, my sister, if you're hearing this. But we didn't have like a good setup with even any siblings. We weren't plugged in with a local church. Like we just didn't have an obvious person in our life. And we, talked about who would the kids go to if we both died, like what would happen? And we were at a loss. So I think that contributed to our delay because I was afraid, I felt stuck. And you know how it is when you don't know what to do, then sometimes you just default to doing nothing. Done that a couple of times. and I get it. So when we finally, baby number 4, decided, okay, we may not have an easy person, like an obvious choice, but if push came to shove, We don't want to leave the kids in the lurch, because here's the reality that we had found out. I don't know how we found it out. We found out that if something happened to both of us and we didn't have a will in place, it could become a legal nightmare for the children, because then there could be a custody fight. And we thought to ourselves, oh my gosh, who would fight for the kids? Like, who would, first of all, we had 4 kids. At the time, we're like, who would be the most likely person to step up to the plate, maybe out of the generosity of their heart. We're thinking, probably one of our parents would, but like they were in their time, like their 60s. And we're like, we owe it to our children and to the rest of our family, and honestly, before God, as a matter of good stewardship, to make arrangements. Even if we just write out something super simple. And I started Googling. I looked like, how do you make a will in Ontario where I live? Can you do it like a form that you fill out? Is that legal? Would it hold up in court, or would it be contested? So I don't necessarily have legal advice for you. Obviously, consult with a lawyer, or someone who has any kind of understanding of the law in your own state. And if you're a homeschooler, you could always consider contacting HSLDA, because I don't know, like, it's not a homeschool issue, but they might at least be able to give you some advice legally. I love them. I Googled it, step 1, and I found out that I could get a home will kit, and it would count, at least where I live. And then a couple years later, when we found out what would it cost to go in and actually get a formal, notarized legal will with an actual lawyer who does this, asked around in my personal contacts, and I was just like, do you have a lawyer? Do you have a lawyer? Do you like, because I'd never even talked to a lawyer in my life. I never had to before. I don't even think we consulted one when we got married, right? Because we just did that through our city. And yeah, I didn't need to consult a lawyer for that. So the whole world of law was just very unfamiliar to me. But I don't even know who, made a recommendation. Oh yeah, here's a lawyer. Here's their contact information. It cost us a couple $100. We got the paperwork done. And because we had narrowed down who would be our the person, it was a couple, it was friends. They were friends of ours, longtime friends. They were a lovely Christian couple, and we talked to them. And even though it was kind of weird because it wasn't family, they were willing to step up to the plate in the, like I said, unlikely event of both of our death. So we were able to designate, my husband, if I died, everything legally, I didn't have any earthly like goods, but the kids would go to him and vice versa. But if both of us died, or were unwilling or incapable, like what if one of us became, like, I don't know, in a coma or something, right? Like, or some other kind of scenario. I mean, they're far-fetched, but they're not crazy. Like, this group has 5,000 women in it. The likelihood of somebody losing a spouse, God forbid, but of a tragedy occurring, I mean, it happens. And so it did bring peace to my mind, and I did sleep better once the papers were signed. Once I had, like I said, the home kit, it was a step. At least I had something on record that my husband and I agreed to. And I did feel a measure of just peace, of like, okay, that's one thing I've done. Now the rest is in God's hands, right? The number of days that I have portioned out to me, that my husband has to him, he works a trade that is high risk. And, all the insurance in the world doesn't bring your spouse back, right? And so I just live trusting that God will take care of us with all of that. I don't, like, when I feel my head going into that space of planning the funeral, I just kind of reel it back in, right? And take self-control over my thoughts, because I don't need to go into those vain thoughts a little too far ahead. I've made the arrangements. The will is there. They gave us a copy to put in our freezer, because they said, even if you have a safe, which we don't have a safe, in a major house fire, at least you have a copy of the will. So we have a copy with our lawyer. I gave a copy to the couple of people I trust in my life, and we kept have a home copy in the freezer. And then after that, we've never ratified it. We've never changed it. We've never done anything to it. It's been there, and it's been there now for 10 years. And I'm really grateful that we have that. Now, I will say that, I realize now I got my timeline wrong. Originally, when I did my home kit will, it was friends that we had designated. But by the time we did a will with a lawyer, life had changed. And there was a couple in our family members, which was our ideal, who were married. We'd had that conversation, would you be willing? And we trusted them, very similar values. It was a good fit. And we also did concurrent to that, with a separate conversation. We also did arrange for life insurance for either me or my husband. We did it when we were in our early 30s, and I'm glad we did. And I thank God that we had the provision. Cost us about $100 a month, maybe about $80 a month Canadian, which is about 65 US. Got like a 20-year term, and just in case something happened to us, either one of us then would have enough money to pay off what was left on the house, and by careful investing of what was left, then we could live until the youngest was 18. That was kind of our plan because we were committed to homeschooling. So we made those arrangements. We had the provision to do that. But like I said, in case you're hearing this, if you're hearing this live, you're catching this later, or years from the future, as you're catching this stored in YouTube land, if you're a couple kids deep and you're feeling guilty about it, been there, done that. And if it's keeping you up at night, then maybe it's something to take action on, and to do a little Googling, do a little asking around your personal contacts, or ask in the Big Family Moms group. If you're not part of it, there's a link below to my Big Family Moms group, where you can certainly ask. There might even be someone in the state that you live in, or in Canada, if that's where you are, or somewhere else in the world. And you can always ask around and network a little bit to get more information. At least taking that first step is so powerful and such a relief, because then you don't feel that deer in headlights, low level panic that you keep pushing down. And I don't believe that that's God's will for us, to live with that constant low level panic, dread feeling. And if you're experiencing that like I have in the past, well, first of all, it could be something else. But if it is just related to a very specific scenario, like what if something happens, then maybe there's something you can do about it. Even if we don't have the money, we don't know, then we'll find out what you can do. And just sometimes when you make that mental shift in your mind, you're like, well, what if I just even asked around? You took the first step, the exploratory research stage. It's empowering. It really lifts off that heaviness, that spirit of heaviness. It is just so life draining, so joy sucking. And I'm grateful that we did it. And I want to share it with you because nobody talked to me about this at all when I was a young big family mom, 4 kids in, and probably imminently about to be expecting number 5 at the time. So yeah, that's what helped me. I hope this has been helpful to you. I did want to let you know before I go that if you're struggling with big family mom life, and you're not feeling the calm, you're not feeling the peace, you're yelling at the kids, you're not in a routine, and like getting a will done is the farthest thing from your mind because you've got other fires to put out. I do have link below my big family home course, and it's got a big thing being added to it. A whole other course is being added to the course on budgeting and feeding your family on a budget, which, how would I even afford life insurance if that's something that's important to you? Well, that would be included in it, and how you could do that. So heads up, that's available to you right now. The price will be going up in the future because it's so much more value coming to it. So the price is locked down as low as it's going to go right now. All right. She hung on for the whole talk. I hope this has been a blessing to you. Look forward to connecting with you in Big Family Moms. And I'm going to go put this munchkin to nap time.